This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You're listening to Achtung Millwall, broadcasting from the beautiful South Birmingham. Accept no substitute.
Hello dear listeners, welcome to this extra edition of our coverage of Dagenham, the FA Cup tie on Monday night. This is actually a little section that I recorded originally to use in yesterday's edition. In actual fact, we got more voice notes than I anticipated, which is good. I like that. And I thought, well, if I include this little snippet of the, fixtures of the past between Millwall and Dagenham, it'll just take us well over the hour mark. And believe it or not, listeners, I am trying my best to produce podcast content that lasts just short of an hour as a maximum. So this is just going to be a short edition today. But I didn't want to overrun by the hour mark. It goes against all the guidance you get on creating podcasts, such as you want to take any notice of that at all. So I thought I would do it as a separate snippet. I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to take you over now to my thoughts on past fixtures between Millwall and Dagenham and Redbridge. Thanks for listening.
Achtung, Millwall.
Welcome back, dear listeners. Now, it occurred to me that I haven't done one of my little history pieces for a long time, and in the wake of last night's FA Cup fixture against Dagenham and Redbridge, I thought it might be nice just to have a look at a fixture from the past featuring Millwall, and in this particular case, Dagenham FC. Now, it's not Dagenham and Redbridge, which was in fact an amalgamation club formed in the early 1990s, an amalgamation of the club we're about to look at now, Dagenham FC, plus Redbridge Forest, which was in itself another merged club. Famous names such as Walthamstow Avenue and Leytonstone and Ilford, over the course of time merged into a separate club called Redbridge Forest, which then in turn merged with Dagenham in the early 1990s. Confused, you will be. All of which culminated in the current incarnation of Dagenham and Redbridge playing at their Victoria Road Stadium, which is where they play to this day, of course. Now, the fixture I've picked out for your consideration, dear listeners, is a 1981 fixture. Now, I should remember this, and I don't remember it. So, long while ago, I guess, Dagenham 1, Millwall 2 in the FA Cup. So, as I say, this is Dagenham FC, the original club that played at Victoria Road Stadium in Dagenham. I don't remember this fixture at all. I should. I certainly do remember this was the second round of the FA Cup. I do remember the third round game, which was a 6-1 loss at home to Grimsby. And this is all under the mismanagement of Peter Anderson. All you older listeners out there will be wincing and cringing in pain at the very mention of the name Peter Anderson. But anyway, this was relatively happier moments in what was the bleak period of Mill history. So yeah, 30th of December, Wednesday evening game, 30th of December 1981, Dagenham FC 1, Millwall 2, played in front of 4,821 at Victoria Road Stadium. Dagenham led in this particular game, so as ever, the FA Cup throws up these kinds of moments, and the Daggers went ahead in the 29th minute, Steen scoring for Dagenham. Thankfully, we would equalise just before half-time, I imagine amidst fraught comment from the travelling Lions fans. famous name. Sam Allardyce scored in the 42nd minute. Obviously, he would go on to greater fame in later career as a manager. West Ham, Bolton, England briefly till his white wine got the better of him and talked himself out of a job, didn't it? But yeah, Sam Allardyce played for the Lions at this period and scored in the 42nd minute before a winner by a great servant for the club, Nicky Chatterton, on the 63rd minute. So that was it. Lions proceed through to the third round of the FA Cup, that 1981-82 season. Now, as I say, it was a bleak period. I do have a match report to regale you with, but let me just run through the Lions starting 11 on this particular occasion. Some familiar names for anyone of a certain age here. Peter Gleesier in goal. Then we have Dave Roberts, Phil Warman, ex-Charlton player in his time, I think. Nicky Chatterton, we've mentioned a few times. Sam Allardyce, we've mentioned. Alan Slough came from Fulham. Chris Dibble was an academy product, if memory serves, as was Andy Massey. Up front, John Bartley. Anyone remember John Bartley playing for us? Dean Neal and Alan West. Substitute was the player manager, Peter Anderson. And Anderson hails brave Dagenham, says the Daily Express of the 31st of December 1981. Nicky Chatterton ended Dagenham's hopes of FA Cup glory last night, says their Express reporter byline. He smacked a 25-yard, sorry, the print is a bit wobbly, 25-yard pile driver past David Denson to earn Millwall a third round date with Grimsby on Saturday, the forthcoming Saturday. So that would certainly the wheels will come off the Millwall bus in that game at home to the Grimsby. What's their nickname? The Fishermen, Shrimpers. I can't remember their name. The celebrations turned sour as a wall collapsed under pressure from the Millwall fans. One spectator suffered concussion and a policeman broke a leg. Dramatic events at Victoria Road. I imagine it would have been a very tight squeeze. It's still not a big ground there. I think they've improved it over the years. They've got a decent away end, if memory serves. We'll go back now. I'll come back to the fixtures in about 10, 12 years ago when we went there, and that's when I visited. I don't remember this game at all, so I wasn't there, clearly, because I would remember the wall collapsing and the policeman being carried away with a broken leg. The resumption, says the Express, was delayed several minutes, but it didn't stop Dagenham from giving Millwall a bashing to the very end. Millwall manager Peter Anderson admitted this was the hardest game we've had all season. It will get harder than this, Peter. The hardest game we've had all season. I can't understand why Dagenham are not in the Football League. He must be on a bumpsy to say that. Dagenham manager Ted Hardy said, if we'd have carried on doing the job the way we had started, we would have won the game. When we took the lead, I thought we had them on the rack. In fact, if we had kept our composure even the last quarter of an hour, I think we could have saved it. Dagenham dominated the first half, and Ricky Kidd gave the Lions more than one scare before Clint Steen put Dagenham ahead in the 31st minute, they say. I think it said 29 in the other reports. 31st minute. Steen's in-swinging corner, flew past Paul Roberts at the near post and into the net, so he scored direct from the corner. But the Lions stunned Dagenham with an equaliser on the stroke of half-time. A perfect free kick by Alan West was headed in by Sam Allardyce before Nicky Chatterton stepped up with his cracker. But even then, Dagenham were not finished, it says, and Millwall were pleased to hear the final whistle. That's the report from Express reporter dated the 31st of December 81. And as I say, this was a tough period. We would then carry on with our third round fixture at home to Grimsby, which would be a few days later, which would finish in a disastrous 6-1 loss at home. I was there for that one. And you can picture the scene. We were leading 1-0 at half-time, and would have stage an ignominious second half collapse, leading to a 6-1 home loss at Coldblow Lane in front of 5,795, including my good self, having led 1-0 at half-time with a Dean Neal goal. Cummings, 48, 78, 2 goals for Cummings. Brolly, 59. Drinkle, 62 and 88, and Wymark on 76, scoring the 6 Grimsby goals, and a strong hint, although he would stick around for another, well, certainly the remainder of this season then, and a good chunk of the next. I got the first hint that Peter Anderson was not all that he was cracked up to be, dear listeners. We'd finish the 81-82 season in the 3rd division, 9th position, so moderate, finish there. The promoted teams being Burnley, Carlisle and Fulham, but the Lions have finished 9th on 67 points, but it would be a disastrous season to follow, where Anderson took us to the brink of relegation to Division 4, and therefore, in my opinion at least, I think many others at the time, near, almost certain extinction as a club. So, disastrous period. Average attendance this 81-82 season at the Den at Coldblow Lane, just 4,652. Dark days, I've written to myself here, and that's a good description for this period of Lions history. I picked out 2 names there. Phil Warman, which is a name I've completely forgotten, mostly known as a Charlton player, came from Dagenham, born in 1950, played for us 34 games, scoring once in that 81-82 season, but for the most part he played for Charlton from 1966 through until joining the Lions in 81. He would then leave us and go for Old Saxonians in Dartford. I don't know that club at all, was player coach. And then joined Greenwich Metro Gas Vets team in 88. Made his debut against Preston in a 2-1 win. Phil Warman was an English youth international. I didn't know that. Left winger before became converted to a left back by Theo Foley, who was Charlton manager for many years. During Phil's time at the Valley, he helped win promotion from Division 3 twice, once in 1975 and once again in 1981. After being freed by the Addicts, he spoke to Peter Anderson at the Football Writers' Dinner. This is the way you get on in life. You find Peter Anderson with a few drinks inside him at the Football Writers' Dinner, and he was tipped to become the next Harry Cripps, but he was forced to retire after just 1 season in New Cross because of a persistent knee injury. Phil settled in Gravesend, where he was a licensee before working for a security company and then in customer service for BMW. Phil Warman, good servant for Charlton, much more than the Millwall. I didn't know that. I don't remember, so I didn't know. I probably knew it at the time. I've erased it from my memory that injury stopped his Lions career. The other game I've picked out, the other player I've picked out, John Bartley, who I do remember being up for. He came to us from Welling United. I think he'd worked as a fireman, and we signed him from non-league. John Bartley, 45 games between 1980 and 82, 8 goals, just 8 goals, which I think was seen as a poor return looking backwards. John was from Camberwell, born in 1958. He made his name at Welling United, but also signed for the Lions for £12,000 in 1980 before moving to Finland, Maidstone United, back to Welling, and then Maidstone once again. Nearer from Belvedere in the end. John was a fireman, says the Neil Fissler A to Z book, from which both of these little pen pictures have been taken. John was a fireman and a prolific goal scorer with non-league Welling, where in 7 years he hit over 450 goals in 7 years. That is goal scoring. This phenomenal ratio brought him to the attention of Football League scouts, and including Millwall. And when the Lions signed him as a replacement for John Mitchell, he gave a return of just 8 goals from 41 league and cup games, and that was seen as disappointing, as we've said. As a result, John was sold back to Welling for a record fee in late 1984, and would then register 47 goals in their Southern League title campaign of 85-86. John worked for an insurance company, is now a van driver. So good luck to John. Clearly a success in Southern League, non-league football. So there's 2 names picked out there. I've mentioned Peter Anderson too many times for comfort in my life, but I did see that he became something of an IT specialist. He moved to Florida quite successfully, and he's made good money out. I think he owns a software online kind of based company in Florida, in the USA, which is a surprising turn of events. But I'm glad it all worked out for him, because he was certainly no use as a football manager. That's for certain. So that was that game, as I've said a few times, was against Dagenham FC. The club would reform as Dagenham and Redbridge in the early 1990s, and then on and off, they're now back in the National League, but they'd be promoted to the Football League briefly. We played them. The only other fixtures that the club ever played against Dagenham, or the versions of it, Dagenham and Redbridge, were 2 FA Cup games in 2012. I went to the game at Dagenham. That was a lively afternoon, dear listeners. You know what I mean by that as well, don't you? A lively afternoon in Dagenham. 2012, January 7th, 2012, 0-0 draw at Dagenham. I do remember it being a disappointing day. The only thing I can really remember from that game is, the away end seemed to be the most impressive part of the ground. The rest of it's all quite low level, cowshed style, low to the ground, stands, terracing. But the away end it's got a decent kind of angled cover and seating, so that was the best end to be at. I remember there's like a tea shop within the stand, and Kenny Jackett, would have been our manager at the time, coming into the away end on arrival. I think the coach must have pulled up at that end of the ground and he came through the crowd, so I remember shaking his hand, Kenny Jackett. 0-0 draw in 2012 against Dagenham and Redbridge. The reverse fixture, replays, kids, remember replays? 10 days later, January the 17th, 2012, a 5-0 win for the Lions. Goals from Darius Henderson, a hat-trick from Darius Henderson, and a certain Harry Kane scored the other 2. Progression in the FA Cup. So those are the only fixtures, 4 fixtures in total now, we've ever played against Dagenham and Redbridge. The one against... The 2-1 win that I've described was with merely Dagenham FC, no Redbridge in that. So I hope you've enjoyed that little glance back at the past versus Dagenham. Big thank you to Michael and the voice notes for contributions to today's show. I will be back at the weekends, Mill versus Hull City. Couldn't make last night's fixture, apologies for that. We'll be there, God willing, or deity willing, whatever you want to believe in, willing, at the weekend. So until then, dear listeners, from me, Nick Hart, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show. Arrivederci Millwall. Bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.